Joining us now, it's the legendary head coach at Pacific. He's been over 30 years there, celebrated 30 years last year. He's get set for another season. I speak of Brian Kolze joining us for the first time here on In the Circle. Coach, how you doing?
Doing well, Eric. Really excited in our second week of fall practice, and really excited. We're really young, but I feel we got a lot of pluses and a lot of versatility. I mean, we may go through some bumps, moving some people around, but it's been a fun group so far for the first couple of weeks. And out here in California, it's like our first true fall, like in 3 years. So I think that's what's exciting, because for the older kids, they knew how it used to be. For the middle kids, they never knew what it was like. And for the new kids, like the freshmen, they don't know anything different. So you kind of have all three pieces trying to put it together. But it's a lot of fun.
What have you learned about your group? And then for those that don't follow your program closely, tell us a little bit about your team in 2023. Who are some of the players that you're looking forward to lead your team?
Well, we have a lot more versatility. So we're moving a lot of kids around, especially in the infield position, because, we have the returning conference defensive player of the year in Delaney Scully, and she bounced between first and second last year, and we're going to keep bouncing her around that. Ryan Dermeyer, our shortstop, had a tremendous year last year, and we're looking at her as a leader. And then Carly Lucchetti, our all-conference center fielder, is back, and she's using her COVID year, but in the 1 year, she's going to get her master's in 1 year. So I think that's exciting, because academically it keeps her on point, and she's just not showing up to play softball. So I think that's it. And then I really think there's a lot of positions that are kind of open, and we're going to try some things and trying, to put the pieces together, but we're in no rush to do it and predetermine anything, because we want everyone to compete on a daily basis, and we actually have the pieces to compete. And in the pitching circle, we've got, we have 6 pitchers, 4 returners, 2 are transfers. And I think what's great about that is they're all already pushing each other, and we're going to have our first little scrimmage fall game Thursday night. So they're all going to get to throw. So it's going to be really fun when we get under the lights and start doing that.
How you feel about the offense and some of the leadership there coming into the season?
Elo, I think it's good, but because there's a lot of people that got better as the season went on last year. But I think the hard part now is for the younger kids that are coming in that are probably going to get some key playing time, kind of to see how they react. So that's kind of why I'm kind of anxious to see here in the fall how they address some of these games and what their approach is with that. I think we're a team, we don't have a lot of power, but I think we've got a little bit more speed. I think we have a little bit more back control. I think we have a little bit more depth. I know we're going to score more runs, and I definitely know that we're going to compete differently than we did last year.
What's this offseason been like for you? You mentioned obviously it feels more normal of a fall in a few years in California, but you obviously were busy coaching this offseason in the summer there. I think you were Team USA in the Canada Cup, I believe, reuniting there with Coach Tarr and Coach Ball-Malone. What was that like for you?
Well, first off, yeah, it was really busy, and it all started being that I'm on the NCAA championship committee. So that meant going to Indianapolis for the selections and spending 2 weeks in Oklahoma at the World Series, which in itself is just an unbelievable electric event. Every game, who doesn't matter who's playing, standing room only, and just how much the sport has grown in my 30 plus years at Division I. I didn't even realize this, though. The first year it was in Oklahoma was in 1990. And I was like, in 1990, I was the assistant at UNLV in my first job, and we were at the World Series. And I was wondering, like, how many people sitting in the stands besides me, and possibly because he was there, because U of A was there, Mike Candrea, Coach and I were wondering, is there anybody else here that was sitting in the stands 30 plus years ago in 1990, the first year they had the World Series in Oklahoma? We might have been the only two people, out of 13,000. So it was pretty funny. But that was a tremendous experience. And then moving, and then, as we said, we got the band back together, getting to go to Canada for 2 weeks with Heather and being on her staff and Cindy. It was so much fun. Just not just the memories, but just the camaraderie and just clicking together. And I'll be honest, I think it was great because I wasn't in charge. I told Coach Tarr, you're the head coach. You want me to throw front toss? You want me to go buy the donuts? You want me to call the bus? You want me to set up screens? It didn't matter. That's what made it fun. And for Cindy, it was great because Cindy obviously had the pleasure of coaching with me and playing for me. So that was different. And then we had Coach Kalaitis from Arizona State, which was a lot of fun working with him too, because I'd never had that opportunity. And what's great about those experiences, just bouncing ideas off of each other. And if you pick up one thing you can bring to your team, your own program in that type of arena, it's a huge success.
What does it mean to see the success that both Coach Tarr has had, Coach Ball-Malone's had at UCF? You, as you mentioned, Coach Tarr was on your staff at Pacific 20 some years ago. Coach Ball-Malone played for you, was an All-American, then joined you on the staff. And to see them, both having that success and getting a chance to, coach with them again, what does that mean to you? Because they both think super highly of you. They both helped celebrate your 30 years last year. I know meant a lot to you, but just to see them grow where they've gone to now. What did you see this coming from them? I mean, what goes to your mind?
What I did see from them was the commitment to the craft and the commitment to the game. Cindy, we'll start with her. Back then when Cindy came here, there was, to be honest, there was probably almost 100 less Division I programs than there are now. So it'd be a whole different dynamic in today's world with someone coming out like her. But she'll tell you, I talked to her in Colorado. I remember the first recruiting conversation, and she did not have a great tournament there. But I kept looking like, Brian, she's 6 foot, she throws this hard, and she's only 16. You got to remember, she's 16 years old. And I kept telling myself that. And I was just really positive about it with her. And I think she felt really comfortable coming to a place like Pacific, one to make a difference, and someone that had a lot of confidence in her, even though she was having some very highs, really good highs, and some really low lows in that process. Heather, I'd gotten her on a recommendation from Coach Rittman, who had coached her at UW, and he's at Clemson now, and we're best friends. And just somebody that just wanted to coach and get opportunity and would grind. And I think, she was so committed to the craft, but I as well. And they both made me better coaches. They made me a better coach. I've learned so much from them now, currently. We still talk when we can. It's kind of hectic right now, but I think there's just such an unbelievable level of mutual respect amongst us that they don't, all I've really told them is don't ever burn a bridge, and don't big league people and, those types of things. And they're at two programs that have been far more successful and highly rated than we have been in the past few years. But I think I'm proudest because to be honest, you always want your kids to do better than you did. And that, that's a goal as a parent. So I kind of look at it as a parental thing and a mentoring thing more than anything else.
They're both competitive people too. Like how
oh yeah,
I'm sure you got stories. How competitive those two get there? I know I've heard magic stories about fungal golf and getting real competitive. How competitive those two get?
They're extremely competitive. They hide it really well, except maybe at the end when they lose. But they're very, very competitive, but they're very balanced in how they approach some things. Cindy always says she has so many bossisms that she uses that she learned playing and coaching at Pacific, and so does HT. But it's just been a mutual thing of just really proud of how far they've gone with their craft and how successful they've been at the national level. And they really deserve it because they've been highly committed from day one. I know Heather was as an athlete at UW for Teresa Wilson, and obviously Cindy Ball here. But at the same time, they've never cut any corners. And that's, I know Cindy was like the only senior in a leadership role when she was a senior. And I never had to worry about it because, first of all, Cindy never cut a corner. So if she ever told anybody anything, they couldn't throw it back and say, well, you're not doing it that way. Because no, that's exactly how she was doing it. It was exactly the way it needed to be done. And that's how it needs to be done. And Heather was very creative and taught me a lot of things, and always kind of started looking, even back at that era, started looking a little bit outside the box, as you might say, which kind of opened me up a little. And I've always appreciated and always brought people in that actually, I don't know if enough coaches do this, that I've always brought people in that will add to an area that either I have a weakness in, someone who's a winner, or probably most importantly, I want the best person. So if they're an infield person, I'll stay with the outfield. If they're an outfield person and they're the right fit, I'll move to the infield, that type of thing. Because I think I talked to a great coach today who's won many national championships, John Dunning, very good friend. And he comes here a couple times a week. And I was talking to him about some things present day, and he hit the nail on the head. And I credit him because he and I have always talked about the most important thing besides who you recruit is who you recruit to coach with. Those are the top two things, because that's where it is. That's it right there.
Oh, that's no doubt. I've spoke to Coach Carbonatto, who's obviously at Santa Clara, played for you. She says it's always special and unique when she comes back and plays against you. Coach Ball-Malone was emotional last year making her return, bringing UCF to your team. What's that like for you when you see your former players, your former staffers come back and play against your teams, like Coach Ball-Malone last year and Coach Carbonatto does, obviously, with her teams?
Yeah, it's always special because I think the most important thing is one thing we've always preached, and it's followed suit with Heather, Cindy, Gina, others, Kim at Long Beach, who was my assistant and is still at Division I. You guys have to remember the game is more important than us. The game is still the most important thing. So how you respect the game and how you do things, I think that's what's so appreciative. And I talk to Gina all the time because she's here in Northern California, and we bounce some things off of each other. We're in the same conference. And it really is special, but it's even more special because we all still keep in touch with each other. We haven't lost that contact. And at one time we were all together, either as coaches and players and stuff. And I think that's what's great. And just like anything else, what's probably most importantly, Heather came here and paid her dues before she got the UW job. Cindy came here, paid her dues going from here, then to junior college, then to Boise, and coached at UW as well. Gina paid her dues, got her master's at UW, coached there, came back here as an assistant, took another assistant job when she thought she was leaving the business. And as soon as the job opened up at Santa Clara, I get a call, boss, we need to have coffee. And I'm like, okay. So we have coffee, and she goes, what do you think I need to do? She loved it at Davis, but it was a chance for a head coaching job. What do you think I need to do to have the best shot at getting this job and to interview the right way? So we spent 2-3 hours having a couple of cups of coffee, and that's it. So I think where I feel the most satisfaction is if they come back to me and still ask my opinion or how to help get them to something certain ways. Even with Heather, who obviously has a national championship and all her accolades, when we're in Canada, asking my opinion or my advice on something, it still makes you feel that you made an impact. And I think we all need to make impacts on everybody. It's not all about winning or losing, but teaching them to do it the right way, to allow them to make mistakes, to let them coach make mistakes. You pull them aside and just say, hey, this might be the way to look at it. This kid it's worked with, this might work with this kid because that isn't working with that kid. Those types of things.
What got you into coaching softball?
That's a great question. You know, I think really what it was is that, I played baseball through college. I was an average player. I was always better defensively than offensively. And I went into a line of work, a business, and some journalistic work. That's what my degree's in, is in journalism. Worked in the TV industry for a while, then worked for my buddy's company. And I was sitting up at a plant in Salem, Oregon, Birdseye Frozen Foods. I'll never forget. And I'm like, man, I'm waiting on an engineer for the umpteenth meeting in a row. It's like, is this what I want to be doing 5 years from now? And I said, no, I want to be doing something in sports. So, I'd played baseball. I'd played men's fast pitch. I wasn't like some all-American or ex-pro baseball player that went back to their alma mater to get the baseball jobs or anything. I enjoyed fast pitch. I had watched it a little through my friend's daughter playing and picked up a few things. And then I was like, I just picked up the phone, sent a letter back then. And on a business trip in January, I went out and lined up to meet with Shan McDonald at UNLV. And I had one of my best friends from college lived in Vegas. The special teams football coach at UNLV had coached at Northridge when I went there, and coached my roommate, who was an All-American punter and kicker. They both said, if you come out here, you got a free place to stay. So I volunteered at UNLV, packed my bags, moved to Vegas, and started and made absolutely nothing my first year there, and just started from scratch. And that was it. And then the passion I had for the game, it just kind of went from there.
Remarkable. What is it about Pacific that is just drawn to you? Obviously been there. I'm sure you've had opportunities over the years, other job opportunities, but you've stayed. What is it about Pacific that you've liked so much as a home?
Well, first of all, I'm from the area. I was raised here. And I went off, went to college, went away to college, not real far, it's still the same state. Came back, went to Vegas to coach. And I think it's really funny, but when I interviewed here at Pacific, I actually interviewed for another job at the same time where I was the assistant, was at Sacramento State, right down the road. And but the thing with Pacific was, the small, I was like, I kind of had this philosophy of like being David among the Goliaths. I liked that small private school. I liked that the academics mattered to the kids. They have to matter here. And to be honest, and Heather will tell you this, Cindy, any of my staff will tell you, the relationships I've built over the years, that I've been able to get some things done at a place like this, that sometimes you're on a tight budget just because of the relationships you've built, and you've been able to do things for your athletes that a lot of bigger schools do, and they have the money, and you find a way to get the money and do things to give them that same type of experience. And to me, it's just been a passion of loving the Ivy League type academic school, and not afraid to play anybody, not afraid to go anywhere. Kind of teaching your athletes that is, don't fear failure. There's no risk, there's no reward without risk. And it's just my niche. It's just my identity that I could have never gone here. I was never a good enough student growing up, so, but when I came back, I just really fell in love with the whole atmosphere and the family type atmosphere that's here, that has always been on this campus and in this athletic department.
You've been a name that coaches across the country have brought up. John Rittman's brought up how you two had a great relationship when he was at Stanford, would help each other as far as finding players. When he was recruiting a Jessica Mendoza, hey, there's Cindy Ball-Malone, for example, as they knew together. Tim Walton has said that you've had a big influence in his career, and as a result, he's kind of helped like coach Ball-Malone and stuff. Where did you get that you've influenced so many people, not just people that have been in your program, but other people in the game there's a lot of people that really look up to you and really appreciate what you've done for the game. Where did that come from?
To be honest, I kind of think it's my, um, part of, there's a lot of things. It's number one, it's my upbringing. It's, I've always felt you check your ego in at the door, you know, I've never had a problem sharing any knowledge or any opinion if somebody asks, or, um, I just, you know, life's just too important and it's too short. And, the game's too important just to be a complete jackass and not be the way that you should be, you know. I know when I first got hired, you know, because I got a call from Coach Candrea about a job that was open, and he asked me if I was interested, and I said no. And I learned a lot from him about sharing, you know, and I was blessed in my beginning years to have people that would share ideas with. So it's kind of like you pay it forward. And, um, it's just the way I think we should be. And obviously the way things are right now, I don't know if that's the case, but I hope that athletically, and then you accept where you're at in the landscape, you know, and you know, I've told my staff, talk to the coach at this school. Who cares if, you know, they've got all the scholarships and NIL money and stuff. It's like, create relationships, you know, don't fear it, you know. And I think it's just, you got to be a people person, and that's just my personality. I learned that from my parents. And I try to teach it to those that I coach with, to be the same way. And I know it's a little different when you're at a higher level with the pressure of the competition sometimes, you know, versus when you were here at Pacific. And I respect that, but, just kind of remember where you came from with that. And so it's hard to say, but I just think you have to be a good person, you know, and you just, if you help people, it's like, hey, man, only one team gets to hold the trophy at the end of the year. So there's about 299 of us that don't, you know what I mean? So, give back to the game, you know, those types of things. And, you know, the old adage, man, treat them the way you want to be treated, you know. And you're right. I have built some unbelievable relationships and friendships over the years. And it's never about who you are, how much money you make, or what program you coach. It's always about, it always goes back to who you are and how you treated somebody. And I keep preaching to the athletes today, man, don't burn a bridge. Do not burn a bridge. You never know when that boomerang's going to come back and hit you in the back of the head. You cannot, because you will regret it. You will regret it. There'll be a day you'll be like, God, coach told me not to burn a bridge, and I really regret that this relationship fell through, or I didn't get this job because I burned a bridge with somebody. Because they, you know, because they laugh, because when we're on the road, I'll run into somebody's like, geez, coach knows somebody everywhere, you know. And it's just like, life's about networking, you know. I think the biggest thing was the one year that I was there, and I know one pilot in the entire world, and we played Little League together 100 years ago, and he announced our team, and the pilot comes back to talk to me, and it's like, oh my God, he knows the pilot. And like, my team's flying on a plane with the only pilot I know on the planet. But it was so funny. But it's just, those are the things that you do. You do what's right. That's it, plain and simple. You treat people right. You know, you're not always going to agree with them, but you treat them right.
That's well said. That's great. I think advice as well. You mentioned there's always a changing landscape in the sport. The sport's exploded. College athletics has exploded. There's movement,
Yeah.
player movement. There's coaching movement. There's university movement. No different in the West Coast Conference. This will be last year for BYU in the league before they go to the Big 12. What's your thoughts on as far as the league is concerned going into this year and BYU's last year and moving forward?
Well, I'm sorry to see him leave. You know, I'm not going to lie, though, on the landscape, they have a lot more resources than a lot of us, but that doesn't matter. You know, Gordon's a great person. He's a great coach, has a great program. We've been friends for years. Um, and I hate to see it, but I understand why they're moving. And to be honest, I don't know where the conference actually is, because most of that dialogue is coming from the coaches in the conference with proposals and options on what to do within the next couple of years. So really, it's kind of in its infancy, but I think they're actually listening to us because of the experience we all have. And it's really an information gathering type situation right now. I don't quite know. What I don't know, though, is in 3 years from now, if how many conferences there actually will be,
Right.
And that's a big part of it. And then all of a sudden to be honest, are all the Power Fives playing each other and all the mid majors playing each other and not crossing over anymore? I don't know. Every day something new pops on the horizon, and it makes my head spin. But at the same time, you just got to grind it and deal with it, because if you don't work through it, it's not going to do you any good.
Yeah, no, you're right. It's such a why you can only control you can control. You still enjoy the game. I can even hear it in your voice. I've heard, when I've talked to you in the past and even tonight as we talk about this. What keeps you going? What keeps you in the game?
Um, a few things. Obviously, competition is good. It keeps you driven. It keeps you goal oriented. It teaches you that life isn't fair. You can do something great and still lose, and you can get a great recruit and then they decommit at the last minute, and it's cruel, but that's the reality of it. But I think it's the competition. I think it's the relationships, and I think it's the athletes. I really do. They need a different type of guidance these days than they did in the past, I think, just because there's so many things that are done for them automatically without them realizing. From the first instance was spell check on a computer. Like, what I mean by that is they don't know anything else different, and really they're a great group, but you got to keep them down the path of, you can only depend on yourself, and this is going to be your responsibility, because there's going to be a day you're going to be out there. You might be 25, you might be 35, and it's like, okay, here, take care of this. And if you don't take care of it, they're going to find somebody else to take care of it. So it's really just teaching about the reality of life and those types of things. And I love the relationships in the games. I love the coaches that are my friends. I hate seeing people like, Hutch and Jackie stepping down after all these years, because I'm kind of like, and Coach Candrea stepping down, because we've been friends for 30 years, basically. But there comes a time. And I think for me, the time is going to come when I'm smart enough to know that I just don't have the energy to give that the kids deserve, with that. And that I'm like, I don't care if it was a good practice or a bad practice. Those types of things. I don't care if a kid did it. No, that's not fair to the kids. It's not fair to the university. And that's not, most importantly, it's not fair to the game, and you have to accept when you die, the game's still going to be here. That's just the fact. The program's still going to be here. So you just got to do the best you can with what you got during that time frame. And you have to look at the glasses half full, even on the bad days.
Well, I know you're intrigued. You're excited about this upcoming season and this team you've got. That'll be my last question to you. You've been so kind to talk to us. What's going to be the keys for this team as you kind of progress through the fall, and then before you know it, February will come around? What is going to be the keys for this team to maybe accomplish some of the internal goals you guys have?
Well, we haven't set any goals yet, but I think if I go by last year, which was, we were very competitive. It was, results wise, was our worst year in 15 years. But we lost some kids in the portal. We had another kid that withdrew from school, so we lost our 2-hitter, our 3-hitter, our 4-hitter, and our top returning pitcher. So it was like, all right, we're going to bootstraps. But I thought our team did a tremendous job in competing. We didn't win a lot of games, but we competed. And when I asked the team, everyone at the end of the year meeting, they said the best part about the season was their team and their teammates, because they didn't point fingers. They started creating a culture that they enjoy. So we're trying to continue that. But I think this year, truthfully, um, I think if I know this is going to sound pretty cliche, but I think at time we need to play a little bit better catch because we weren't strong enough to give up a lot of extra outs to some teams last year. And I think we need to do a better job of maybe not hitting, but putting more balls in play with authority with runners on base to put more pressure on the opponent. I don't think, even though we were competitive, I think there's times we didn't challenge the opponent enough. Not that we made it easy, we just didn't make some of it difficult for them when we had opportunities. And I think they understand that. And, you know, contact ratios and stuff like that, and starting by putting balls in play with, you know, in those types of situations with authority, you know, I think is really important because putting some pressure back on the opponent. If they make the play, tip your cap. But those are some of the little things I think that we need to do. I think we had ups and downs with pitching, but pitching is kind of that way. But we need to do a better job of not giving up extra outs, and we need to be challenged a little bit more with the situations when we have runners on base.
Well, we look forward to seeing your team play this year, Coach. But in the meantime, thank you so much for coming on. I know this has been on our bucket list for a while. Coach Ball-Malone's been telling me, like, you got to get him on, and we're so proud to get you on. Thank you for everything you've done for the sport. You got so many people that look up to you and admire what you've done in the sport. That have been on the show. I have numerous coaches, too many to name. I've only named a few on this episode, on this interview. Thanks for doing what you're doing, and congrats on the success, and good luck this season. And thanks for talking to us. And we really had a blast, and hope to do this again soon.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And thanks for all you do for the sport, Eric. Appreciate it.